Welcome to the Fish Podcast. I am your lip center, liquid narrator. I am joined by our centrist homosexual,
Hello there.
our off left Zemaitiskas. Nice. Our lip right Dr.
Hi.
Our lip left Anderville,
Always a pleasure.
and our off right Proxy General.
Hello.
And today we are talking nationalism and fish. So, who wants to open with their opinions on nationalism or fish?
Fuck tuna. Fish as well.
What?
For real. Are we talking about fish for real?
Yeah, I think we should hold off fish for a separate podcast because I have some very deep-seated opinions on the issue.
Yeah,
I
I agree with that. I don't think
separated.
I don't think we can have a meaningful conversation about fish when connected with nationalism. I don't think it's just going to go deep enough.
All right.
Yeah, let's just keep it to nationalism today.
All right.
All right. So,
Proxy, tell us why you're a Greek nationalist.
Why? You mean why or what do I believe?
Well, we all know you're a Greek nationalist, so I don't think we need you to tell
Explain
us that.
why.
Yeah.
What's so
Well,
great about Greece?
the funny thing is that I used to be a libertarian sometime ago, or at the very least a conservative. The average American.
Dude, your fucking mic.
Yes, I know. Sadly, however, I can't do anything about it. So, anyway, I used to be a conservative or at least libertarian some time ago, some years back. However, as the years went, I kind of changed my mind on politics. I started to believe that excuse me, I started to believe that nationalism is perhaps the best solution for my country, the most fitting ideology for the government as for the people. As for which reason specifically, besides the things that are going on, the economic situation, the immigration rates, the current government that is kind of like the American politics right now, two parties barely any different between them. And we have sort of like the Greek Republicans and the Greek Democrats, one progressive and the other supposedly conservative. And the issue is that it's been 40 years since the past junta, the colonels. However, I've not lived for that long. Regardless of that, for the years that I've lived, I've barely noticed any difference between them, regardless of whether it's been a conservative or progressive on the seat of the government. There has been any difference. The immigrants are still coming, the economy is still going to shit, and people are still barely to pay for their houses and barely got everything to eat. So the situation is pretty bad. Even for the conservatives in charge, there's barely any difference. So that has made me to become even more radical and quote unquote radical, whatever, in a position. I believe that the best solution for government is a nationalist slash populist government. So you can say about it, you can draw whatever connections you want. The current party I support is Golden Dawn, which is kind of controversial nowadays after the court situation, where, to say the least, they kind of got framed for a murder that they didn't even commit.
What?
The murder
That they did commit.
they
Little
didn't.
correction.
I
What?
mean, the murder was a member of the Communist
Let's
Party.
not get into this right now.
I'm sorry.
Is this like some Epstein got killed shit? Like
What the
Epstein
fuck?
did or didn't get killed shit? Like it sounds like it.
You guys never
Wait,
mentioned
what?
that Golden Dawn
Go-
murdered someone. What the fuck?
I did not listen to whatever the
They
hell.
I mean,
murdered
that's
What
the
happened?
reason the
a rapper
fuck is
and literally like beat up multiple immigrants.
Yeah,
so
wait,
here is
Golden
the
Dawn.
issue.
They're
The whole,
neo-Nazis.
Yes, they are
will you go
basically the
again?
neo-Nazi part of Greece.
They're not
They're
here.
the official neo-Nazi party of Greece, and you support them.
They're not neo-Nazi. They're
Yes, they are.
nationalists.
They are considered neo-Nazi. They're
Yeah,
considered bad by everyone.
Trump is also considered fascist. What do you mean? The junta was also considered fascist, despite not even having an
It was
ideology.
fascist though. It was fascist though.
Golden Dawn would call Trump a fucking liberal, to be honest.
I mean, I would call him too.
Well, there you
Most
go.
sane Golden Dawn supporter.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, they're not neo-Nazis, they're nationalists alone.
They are considered neo-Nazis by everybody, by
Yeah,
literally the majority of the international community.
So I mean, those organizations consider anyone. Look
What
at
do you
their
mean?
list,
They employ active parts of Nazi ideology in their ideology.
which
Like,
is
hold on, there was
give
like a
examples.
lot of scandals with anti-Semitism and general like disregard for.
I mean,
Yeah, I'll point out though.
minorities and groups.
One
I
of
mean,
Britain's
look,
biggest
look,
left-wing party also had a controversy with anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
so
but
this is
not on
a
the
European Party
same, not
has
on the
issues
same
with
order as
anti-Semitism.
Golden Dawn.
example. Liquid narrator also doesn't have
Every single European party ever has had moments of
libertarian.
anti-Semitism.
Liquid
Yeah,
narrator
literally, they're apparently like if you look up on, for example, on Wikipedia, their political their ideology is
Wikipedia is
literally
not a good
neo-fascism.
source. Shut the fuck up.
I mean, that's fair enough, but
says,
still.
I mean, Wikipedia calls everyone a fascist. It says Trump has a cult of personality. It also says that the Greek junta of the
Proxy,
19th,
I can barely make out what you're
70s.
saying.
My point is that Wikipedia calls everyone a fascist, at least in terms of partisan leadership. It even says that the junta of the 70s, despite not even having an ideology, it was mainly militarist, not anything else.
Their flag is also really sus if you look at it.
Blood honor.
What's their flag got on it?
It's got
They
something that
also
looks
do not
really like
salute
a.
in the
It's really
rallies.
close
It looks
to
like a swastika. It's a golden key. It's like a Greek thing, but it looks like a swastika, and the color scheme is
It's
the
a
same as the
meander.
Nazi flag.
Let me
It's a
look it up.
meander.
I'm gonna look it up.
And the flag has many schemes. It also has a red scheme, but it also has a blue version, or even a golden version. It has several color schemes. And the thing is that the symbolism is basic. It's a meander. And meander is a symbol that used to be used in Greek, ancient Greek symbolism. You can see it on the Parthenon, on Greek vases, statues, and it's also been used during the Byzantine era, Byzantine history.
I just looked
The
it
symbol
up.
is only Greek.
Yeah,
It's been
exactly.
connected.
Oh.
The party is regularly described as neo-Nazi by news media internationally too. So
And
That means nothing. Oh
I
god,
mean,
have you
the
heard
the
of
party is
Guardian
the
called them
describing as
neo-Nazis.
neo-Nazi for no reason, though. Like there is a
they
reason
do.
why they do it.
They do though, like for no reason often. Have you
All right,
seen
give me an
what they're
example.
saying about Trump, for example?
Check the host chat. That's the leader of Golden Dawn.
None of those links are working for me. I even tried to throw
Oh.
them into. Oh, here we go.
Really? Really? I've
And
legitimately
there are
the
pictures from the
image,
rallies when they
very
do the
funny.
Nat salute.
I've legitimately looked Golden Dawn up. I've got images of guys holding guns at other guys' heads, people dressed as Nazis, SS flags. Jesus
Wow,
Christ.
guys, that's definitely not a neo-Nazi party, you guys. It's just nationalists, guys. I swear.
Yeah, that's probably Photoshop. It's like 20 years ago, before the party was even formed. That scheme in university, I think.
I
And
don't
he's
think that
currently like
matters.
60
I
years
don't.
old.
I
It
don't
doesn't
think
really
that
matter, but it still
matters.
shows that he's a neo-Nazi.
I'm sorry, but I've
Yeah.
just got this here. In October
He's
7th,
like-
2020, Greek court rules that Golden Dawn Party is a criminal group.
But that's incorrect though, because the party is still legal.
It's illegal, but
Also,
You can't.
here's a
still
picture of
tell
another
it.
one of their politicians that has
it's,
a Nazi.
it
apparently
contradicts itself.
it was founded as a neo-Nazi group in the
If it was a
1980s.
criminal organization, it wouldn't have been legal in the elections. However, it is. It is present in polls, in elections, in results, statistics. It's still a legal party. The youth still exists. The party still exists. It's not illegal. The thing about the criminal organizations, it is mostly on the media. It's not official in the court. The politicians have been sent to jail, but not the party itself.
Oh, there we go. In April 2014, Golden Dawn MP Member of Parliament Ilias Panagiotaros described Hitler as a great personality, like Stalin. So maybe not the greatest party to support. If yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
this isn't looking
depends on
good.
depends on the context. You said a great personality like Stalin. You mean in terms of influence on importance in terms of history, because it makes sense in that context. I don't think any Nazi party would revere Stalin in that context. It doesn't make sense for me.
Fair enough. All right, but I mean, there's plenty of criticism to draw at the party, though.
Yeah, criticism, sure, criticism, but they're not Nazis.
And to be fair, I don't think that's like a quote that automatically says neo-Nazi.
As for the photo you sent of the politician that is Kasediaris, that's photoshopped. It's been confirmed that's photoshopped with a tattoo on his arm. I mean, you can even see that the lighting doesn't fit very well around the tattoo.
Wait, I am okay.
And
We're
I've
sort
seen the person with short sleeves. He doesn't have that tattoo on his hand.
I want to just step in here for a second, which is I think it's pretty obvious that whether or not they are specifically neo-Nazi, they are definitely neo-fascist. Like there's a lot of values that the Nazis had that were specific to the Nazis, and we
Yeah,
could
like,
go and have a description, a conversation about whether or not Golden Dawn has those, but that might
Yeah,
be a
like
little bit
German
more hit or miss.
nationalism on specific, Volkism.
Yeah, but to the degree that it's like authoritarian, nationalist, conservative,
Yeah, sure.
and things like that. I think that neo-fascist is probably one that, I mean, to the degree that everyone hates the term fascist, a lot of Golden Dawn people would probably fight against. But I think we can sort of agree that it's at least in that direction.
It is pretty clearly so.
Sure, they give off that kind of vibe, but not exactly fascist per se. But sure,
Okay.
they give off that vibe. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and then also, I did want to say that there's another quote on Wikipedia, which again, of course, Wikipedia. So, of Ilias Kasidiaris. I apologize if my pronunciation's horrible for that.
You pronounce it pretty good, I think.
Oh, thank you. Who, in an article, he was talking about, wondering what the world would be like if, in World War II, Germany had not lost and thus the world was more filled with nationalist virtue. He described Adolf Hitler as a great social reformer and a military genius. Anyone who describes Adolf Hitler as a military genius is an idiot, in my opinion. Great social reformer, I also have problems with. But military genius is just patently they lost the war because of Adolf Hitler being a fucking idiot and his generals.
Kasidiaris.
Yeah, Kasidiaris.
I mean, that person isn't in the party. He created his own.
Oh, okay. So he's apparently, I guess he was in the Golden Dawn at the time. I can double check that.
Yeah, but
he was a
chickened out
spokesman for the
after
party at the
party.
time.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's
so-
fair enough. So they kicked him out. That's good, right? Anyway.
I think he
he
left
left
by
on his
himself
own.
so he wouldn't go to jail.
Yeah, he was a coward. And an asshole. I mean, I know him, not personally, but I know the guy. I also know the people who are in his party. He also has a literal pedophile in his party. So that's the reason I wanted to vote for it.
He also
hey.
beat up a woman on live television.
What?
I mean, I
Yes.
support that because the woman attacked him first.
Is there a video
The
of this?
woman
Can you get me a
Yes,
video of
there is
this?
a video.
Please
There is
get
a video.
Please get me
Proxy,
a
if you
video.
can find it and send
If I
it.
remember correctly, the woman attacked him first. Or he went on live television with a member of the Communist Party. And that specific
Yes, he
member
was so
calling him
threatened.
vulgar words. She was cursing at him. And I think she even raised her hand against him. So that's when he snapped and slapped her. And she's like a slap, nothing else.
Oh, I'm imagining
Yeah.
he just starts punching her over and over again, and it just starts curb stomping.
Yeah, and not that. That's
That's
not
what
it.
I'm
He slapped
imagining.
her. He slapped her.
Yet it was close to that. I think it was a punch followed up by multiple slaps.
Jesus.
I think it was
Let me see
just
if I can
slap.
find the video.
And she attacked him first, so it's justified. personally.
So-
She did not
Holy
attack
shit.
him first.
This Cassidiaris guy
Sounds
is
like a real
under like. Dude, he has a swastika tattooed on his arm, and he quoted the protocols of the elders of Zion in a speech to Parliament. Like,
Yeah.
The thing is that the swastika tattoo said it's a Photoshop because his arm doesn't actually have it. It's a photo from him in the beach, and someone photoshopped the swastika on it to publish it. It's not actually real.
Also, another thing, Golden Dawn's leader, Nikolaos Mikaloliakos, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation, denied the existence of gas chambers and ovens at the Nazi extermination camps. So,
You might not want my answer on that.
oh god. Oh god.
they are
Oh
among us.
god. Jeez.
Okay, I found the video. Give me a minute.
Just to protect myself from possible any pushback after the video goes out. I don't personally follow the National Socialist ideology. I'm just a nationalist. I'm neither a complete socialist in terms of economics. I don't believe in German nationalism. I don't believe in
Alright, watch
Volkism.
this video.
I don't hate the Slavs. I don't believe in genocide. Just question some things about it historically speaking. That's all about it. Like I still believe that many people suffered. It was a complete tragedy, but fewer people died. That's what I believe.
Greece is really weird when they're arguing. It just sounds like really fast nonsense.
Kind of.
Well-
Let me check the video again for a
Yeah,
second.
that's basically it. He didn't even
If I
attack him.
remember correctly, the woman attacked him first. And just let me check.
Well, I'm an unbiased source on this, so I will be the judge of that.
Either way,
Yes,
I
That
yes,
think
was the
it's
top
not
comment.
about
The
him.
way it was going, I thought it would do combo 5x. It was gonna... Great.
though I think we're sort of getting off of topic here. If we want to be talking about nationalism, we haven't even actually addressed anything about like even what Proxy thinks
We
is
just
good about
talked
nationalism.
the party.
Jesus Christ. I did not see her hitting him.
You saw the video.
Yeah, let me watch
That
it.
was truly something, if I do
Yeah,
say
I
so.
mean, she threw water at him, and if you understand
No,
Greek,
he
during the
was the
video,
one that threw the water.
she was vulgar at him.
Oh, so what happened was he hits a glass like across the room, and then she hits him with like a piece of paper or something, and then he just starts he punches her and starts hitting her.
Jeez. Some guy has been having a bad day, I guess.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't say that is a he's innocent situation.
I mean, you know what's the fun thing about it? Presents the video. So if you see the video, he's actually just slapping her on the cheek, right? He's just slapping her 3 or 4 times in the cheek. However, after
This
the
is
video
not
went out,
justified. Don't try just.
I'm trying to say something else. After the video went out to public, she basically went. It was like the next day, the next couple of days. She went on live television and she basically marked her eye in makeup and said, look at this. He gave me a black eye with a punch."
I can
Like the guy didn't even hit her in the eye. He didn't even punch her, and she claimed that he gave her a black eye
I can confirm
with
one
obvious makeup.
punch is not going to give you a black eye. That's from the
It can. You just got to land it right.
Let alone,
Yeah,
slap.
but I'm talking about the
Let alone
punch. I'm
slaps.
talking the punch in that video. That's not a black.
Oh,
eye.
that was a slap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
you'd have to sort of poke somebody's eye out to give them a black eye with a slap.
So it
It would be
fine.
hard. It would be pretty hard.
Yeah,
Like
But
mustache-
that
mustache
dude going,
ingredients.
that guy going berserk and like throwing water across the room and slapping the shit out of her was obviously not fake. So
Yeah.
just that part,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna.
I deny the black eye, public television that she claimed she had. I'm denying that, not the video. But to be fair, in the video, if you understand the Greek that is being said,
I can't tell if this guy's
Yeah,
extremely
yeah,
based
right.
or if he's just insane.
he got angry because they were basically cursing him. They were being verbal abusive, to say the least. So
Yeah.
if you understand what they said at him.
What this guy's reminding me of is if you guys, I can't remember the guy's. I think he might be president of Brazil actually, but the Brazilian guy who had like that one clip where he was saying how when they were talking about how many criminals police officers had killed, and he was like, he said something along the lines of he wanted them to kill another 100,000.
Yes.
You know how I'm talking about Proxy. It reminds me of that guy.
Brazil numero uno.
Yeah, there's like a whole clip of this guy where he's just talking about how he wants the police to murder criminals, and there's like loads of different quotes from him about that, and it's honestly it's kind of best. Proxy, you know him. What's the guy's name?
Which of them? The politician in the video?
Which one? Bolsonaro?
Yeah, that's
But
it.
no, I don't know the politician in Brazil. No, I don't know Brazilian politics that well.
Bolsonaro, did you say his name was?
Oh Jesus, Bolsonaro! Don't even get me started.
I mean, at the state that Brazil is at, can you blame him?
Though it does remind me of Duterte in the Philippines, who got elected because I guess he got elected because people thought he was based. He was like, just, if you're going to do drugs, like, out in the street, we're going to drag you around, beat the shit out of you until you stop, sort of stuff, right? He definitely
Yeah,
did.
that's the guy that would go down to town on his motorcycle and just start shooting drug addicts.
Which
I
is nice.
I can't
Something along those
attest to
lines.
that, but it sounds like something he either would do or say he did. The guy really does not give a shit about the exercise of power to eliminate the things that he thinks should be eliminated. But I think, I've been waiting this whole time to tell y'all why nationalism sucks. So you can finally continue on to why nationalism is good. But I'm waiting here.
Well, can someone
to say my
say
piece.
anything besides me? Because I don't want to be the only one speaking.
Jesus fucking Christ! I literally just looked at Bolsonaro. Cops in Brazil gas man to death with improvised gas chamber. Jesus fucking Christ!
No, Bolsonaro is fuck Bolsonaro in my opinion. But wait. So does anybody else want to? Is anybody else on the nationalist side here?
Yeah, I'm on the nationalist side.
I hate my
Okay.
country, so I'm not really. I don't really have.
As an Eastern European, I think I have a lot of incentive to be very nationalist.
All I need to say for why I hate my country is I literally looked up Bolsonaro police, and on YouTube what came up: man taught dog Nazi salute found guilty of hate crime. I think we all know what event that was in my country's
Yeah.
history. Yeah, not great. So that's enough reason to hate my country.
F for Count Dacula.
Yeah.
But Count Dracula was arrested again.
No, it was the original video.
Oh,
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was from 4
when he
years ago.
Googled Bolsonaro, like the Count Dankula thing came up, and I assumed that he had the the Wojak bowed head sort of feeling in his heart.
Yeah.
That's what you had, Liquid? Yeah.
Well, that's why I had to remake my Wojak because Wojak Studio removed nearly all the assets I used, and yeah, it's now just the withered one as the base because
how did they remove it?
they removed assets from Wojak Studio for some reason. I don't know why, because I was using the the stereotypical like the femboy hair thing. I was using
Yeah.
Yeah, I was using that because that's like where my hair is now, and they've removed that for some reason.
Oh.
Same thing with the Hawaiian shirt I used, the sunglasses. I think they removed the Joker face paint as well. Like they just removed everything really, so I had to remake it. And now I look like an old man. I think Zemaitiskas compared me to Grandpa Max from Ben 10.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
Zemaitiskas, I do want to know what you consider to be the reasons that nationalism is good.
I mean, throughout like history, my country's just been through the shit, Russians, Germans, Poles, you name it. Honestly, they're all fucking worthless, so they should be killed and Lithuania great again.
Based.
I don't care if you're Syrian, Black, Asian, you're all worthless.
Also based.
Well, good to know we disagree. All right.
Thank you, Kanye. Very cool.
Though, do you got anything else there? Like,
Honestly, not really.
Oh, okay. Okay. And DR, I was
No.
wondering what your position is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, what? My position on nationalism?
Yeah.
Well, I personally am against nationalism because I don't believe it leads to any sort of constructive dialogue between, for example, if you I mean, most countries these days, they are multicultural, right? I mean, there are people from different backgrounds living in countries all around the world.
Yeah,
And I
it's
don't
terrible.
think that
That's
nationalism I don't think that nationalism leads to any constructive dialogue because if we're all working in the same environment, we're all contributing to the overall economy and the overall level of life in a country. I don't think it will be constructive for anyone to just say, "Oh, well, you see, me and my cultural or like ethnic group are better than your ethnic group. Get out." Right? I don't think that leads to anything constructive.
I mean, applying it
I
to someone who
believe
lives
in-
in a multicultural country, it's failed, and basically all our politicians have admitted it's failed. So,
I mean,
Although the
that's
thing is
fine,
that
but like,
not everyone contributes in a way in the same way. Not even. I mean, have you seen that statistics in terms of hours per work or welfare? Most
yeah,
ethnic minorities basically leads of welfare and provide nothing else. They don't work, and when they do a pretty poor job and take the job opportunity from other ethnic locals. And not to mention the crime rate, and not even going to mention it. So no, they don't assimilate well. They don't even contribute to the country the same way an ethnic local.
yeah, but do
At
you
least
think
foreigners.
nationalism is a way to integrate them into society? Because if you antagonize them, do you really think they're gonna want to contribute to your society? That doesn't work. For example, like, okay, let me take the example of Latvia. For example, right, Latvia has a very sizable ethnic minority of like around 30%, which are ethnically Russian. There are people who moved to Latvia after the collapse of the Soviet Union, right? So for example, Latvian government today is more nationalist leaning, right? I mean, it's not really like nationalist. It's a more conservative. It's a conservative country, right? It takes patriotism and all of that stuff very seriously because it is also a very young country, right? But what it does is it antagonizes the Russian ethnic minority and also other Russian speaking ethnic minorities in the country, and then they're surprised that nobody wants to do anything in the country. Like, for example, right now they want to reinstate military drafts, right, because of the Russian threat on the eastern border. But it is a resounding negative reaction from the ethnic minority because they've been alienated and antagonized for the last 30 years, and obviously they don't want to do anything for the state because it's been antagonizing them. That's why I think that nationalism is not always the best choice when it comes to, for example, reintegrating some ethnic minorities into the country. For example, like you're a Greek nationalist, right?
Yes.
Proxy. So, for example, you mentioned that ethnic minorities, I'm assuming in Greece, don't want to work as much as Greeks, or was that what was your point? What was your argument?
Yes, that's one of my points. Yes.
Right. Do you really think that antagonizing them is going to make them want to contribute to your society?
I mean, they never even wanted to contribute. It's not the nationalism that they did the job. And you can see that in other woke countries as well, regardless of how much tolerant we become. The same issue realize that the ethnic minorities don't want to assimilate. That's regardless of how much we help them, regardless of how much we tolerate them, regardless of how much we fight nationalism. They always want to keep themselves and not assimilate. That's
Well, I
not
mean, that's
just
natural, but
that's exactly what
if
happens
you
over
provide,
here. The
yeah.
Malays.
Take Albanians, for example. Most that have
Don't
lived here
let me
for
start
2 to 3
it.
generations. No, they have essentially assimilated most of them.
They haven't.
You can barely even tell that they are Albanian.
What
And
do you
most of
mean?
them
You can tell that pretty much from the face alone that they are Albanian. They're pumpkins.
I
Τηγανοκέφαλοι.
mean, not really. If you go near Thessaloniki, You cannot tell the difference that much.
That's pretty much you. I can tell the difference, even regardless of in the county.
Alright, yes.
Regardless of the region, I can pretty much recognize it. It's like a street lantern. You can see it pretty much broad daylight. That's the Albanian from the phenotype alone. And even outside the phenotype, there's also the accent, the way they behave, and regardless of the statistics as well. There have been like 4 generations of Albanian immigration, but they still contribute to the majority of the crime rates, even more than the immigrants. And also the drug, the what's the word for it in English? The drug trafficking as well from the borders. Most of the drug gangs are basically Albanian. Most of them.
I mean, it makes sense because they're not as developed of a country as we are, and since they are our neighbors,
And
of course, they traffic drugs in here. The
we
Albanian
aren't
gang.
developed either. Have you seen the economy?
But,
How many Greeks
but
have you seen developing drugs and selling them? Maybe a few students,
well,
maybe.
have you seen the gypsies?
Yeah, gypsies are not Greek. I'm talking about Greek
Well,
ethnic.
it depends on neighborhood. But yes,
Yeah,
not
depending
as
on the
many as the
neighborhood.
gypsies.
The most you're going to see
But the
is
gypsies
a few students.
have a monopoly on drug production, and they've basically monopolized crime.
Yeah, that. Albanians monopolize crime and gypsies.
Not
Could you tell us
Albanians,
the reason
gypsies.
besides ethnics? We aren't developed either. We're not that far away from Albania. We also have our own economic problem. However, that's not a source
Yes,
of the
we
issue.
like to shut Europe's cock.
What?
We like to pretend we're Europeans.
I mean,
You-
ethnically we are kind of we're Caucasian, but the issue is
Kind of,
that
but
regardless
Did you
of the
just say
economics,
Greeks are from the Caucasus?
I mean Caucasian as in Greek. I mean white,
Caucasian as in white. Oh, okay.
Caucasian. Yes. So the thing is that regardless of the economic situation, Greeks still contribute in a very small minority of the drug king. Uh, Barely anyone produces them, and the only ones who kind of contribute to the trafficking are students, like the usual high school or college student who does weed and contributes. Like, what's the word for it? We basically call them vaporakia here. I don't know what's the English word for it. Junkies. Wait, no. To give one pop culture
yeah, I don't
example
know
as
the
to
word as well.
understand what I'm speaking of, have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, basically
Think of people like Jesse.
friends of Jesse.
Jesse, yes, basically college or high school students who don't complete failures, smoke weed, and basically traffic it. That's the only thing you're going to see here from a Greek log. And,
Now we also have like huge weed productions.
which is
People
illegal.
get caught like
That's only
yes,
in Crete, as far as I know. It is against the law, and not everyone does it. I've been to Crete myself.
yes, but
Do you know
mostly
how many
Greeks
people I've seen smoking weed?
produce and traffic
None.
weed.
I haven't seen anyone producing on the. I haven't seen anyone producing or smoking the product, and I'm Cretan. I've been to the island. It's not as bad as you think it is.
I've been to the island and I've seen people just smoking blunts in front of pharmacies and hospitals.
I haven't, and
Greece
I
sounds like a really nice place.
and I come from there. Half of my ancestry is from Crete. The other one is from another island. And I can tell you, it's not as bad as you think.
Or I was there for 2 months and I've seen multiple people smoke weed, but at the end
Yeah,
of the day, weed is not
small
that
part
bad.
of the population, barely anyone. On the other hand, Albanians, they basically monopolize the crime rate in terms of drug usage and trafficking. I
I'm not
mean, you also
sure
have
about
other
that.
ethnic minorities. You have gypsies, you have Afghanis, Pakistanis, and other things. However, most of them are Albanians.
I'm gonna press X to doubt that, because from what I've seen, the crime rate specifically from Albanians have fallen like drastically in the past years. The
How
main
much?
problem,
I mean, whenever there's a
I'm
crime,
sure-
you definitely hear about an Albanian being involved. Like you hear about a beating, a drug trafficking, sexual harassment, rapes, murder, whatever. The
yes,
odds
but
are
I'm
that
going
he's going to be Albanian.
a lib left here and say that we do over.
Oh, it's a police
Basically,
fraud.
whenever there's an Albanian, the news makes sure to say he's Albanian, while if he's Greek, they just won't say the race or ethnicity.
Well, no shit. Even though you still guess the race, you say, "Oh, this is Albanian. This is Greek," because he doesn't specify. Because the last thing you must expect is to basically specify someone is Greek in Greece. I mean, it's like going to England and saying, "Oh, this is an Englishman." Oh, in
Yes, but that
Germany,
does.
here is a Greek. Here is a German person in Germany. Like no shit. No one is specifying if someone is Greek. However, he's specifying if he's a foreigner. Excuse me for a second.
Yes, but doesn't that end up being a problem of basically creating racism? Because if you just hear, oh, Albanian did X, Bulgarians did X,
And
and just you hear
you
that
want
over
to
and over
basically censor
again.
the nationality from the news. So whenever some crime happens, we don't know who did it.
Well, homemade to point out as a counterpoint to that, over here in Britain, we've actually had a huge issue where our police refuse to identify members of grooming gangs by their race because they're all of a specific ethnicity and they don't want to be called racist for it. And so we now have a huge issue of British girls getting groomed and raped and basically treated like sex slaves, and the police doing nothing about it because they refuse to look at aspects that could make them easier to catch people. Because if they have an ethnicity and if that there's only so many people of that ethnicity in that time, you can cut down who's doing it by a significant amount. But that's not happening here. So now we have basically a protected class of a specific ethnicity who can get away with doing whatever the fuck they want, because if the police do anything about it, they're scared they're going to get called racist.
That's basically Albanians here.
Is hacked.
Yeah,
That's also about ethnic minorities in Greece to an
yeah, but at
extent.
least with the Albanians, they tell you it's the Albanians. They try to hide it over here who's doing it, but it's like it's so obvious. Everyone still knows who it is.
Yes, and I'm not saying don't report if it's Albanian. I'm just saying report if they're Greek as well.
I mean,
Just mention the ethnicity for fuck's sake.
you know when he's Greek though. You know, I mean, like, the thing is, whenever a crime happens, the logical thing to think is that he's Greek because we live in Greece. So the average population is Greek. So when a crime happens, he's a Greek, right? That's the
No.
logical thinking.
No, because of the reporting that says that Albania did X, Bulgaria did X, you
Yeah,
just
because he's an
automatically
exception.
assume they're a foreigner.
Yeah, that's the exception. When there's a foreigner, that's at least supposed to be the minority in terms of population, because we have like a 10% at best of foreigners in Greece. So, by logical circumstances, you think that the minority of the population does the minority of the crimes. So, whenever there's a crime, the majority of the odds is going to be that he's Greek. However, that's the logical way of
Yes,
thinking it.
but
So,
but there are
wait,
situations where
he's normally Greek.
wait.
Wait, let me finish. So he's normally Greek. However, if he's something else, that's when you're going to say it.
Yeah.
how
I'm going
about
to say
the
something
times
which
where
is
there are like there are 6 people and let's say one Bulgarian. They will just report that Bulgarians did the crime, even though there were like also 5 Greek people that might be even running the gang. And they find the one immigrant, just report that one guy and color the others as Bulgarians as well, for example.
No, they're not doing this. They're saying those specific guys are Bulgarian. And like, say you caught, the police caught 5 people in a gang that brought drugs through the border. they're going to say that 3 of them are Bulgarian. 3 of them. So the other 2 were Greeks. That's the way
Yeah.
of thinking it. And no one says 3 of them were Bulgarian, so 1 of them were. That's no things like that. That's just you.
So I just want to say that it's been fun having this become the racism podcast, but
No problem.
I,
You're welcome.
I do like it when people actually look at important factors and the complete ignoring of socioeconomic factors in crime, when socioeconomic factors are actually
Oh,
the
yes,
largest
blame the
component in crime, is huge. And one thing that we should talk about is when you have discriminated populations coming in with less wealth that then, in combination with the discrimination, then continually occupy a place as an underclass, poor people and people with less economic opportunity that then develop a reputation of being poor people who are not developed, oftentimes have less opportunities to advance through what are considered, the sort of what higher echelons of society, right? And in almost any situation, regardless of what actual ethnicity that is, generally these ethnic groups oftentimes have people that choose to use crime as a method of getting wealth in that society, right? And the thing is, oftentimes it's immigrants, but I mean, if you look in the U.S. at the groups of white people that have the worst development in the country, like, the sort of like West Virginia, middle of America with no businesses type stuff. It's like the meth and
The
biker
trailer
gang
park.
rates and stuff. Yeah, the things like that. It's very clear to see that it's a socioeconomic thing. And then, like, if you look at all the ethnic groups that came into America that weren't discriminated against, those are the ones that integrated the most, had the least crime, and things like this. Like Danish people. I mean, even like
Fuck the
Eastern
Danish.
European people. Well, no, I'm never. I was about to say I'm never going to fuck the Danish, but I would gladly fuck Danish people. Because they're awesome. So, no, yes and no. Yes in a way you don't mean, and no in the way that you do mean. But yeah, like, even Eastern Europeans that are considered to oftentimes be like poor people, like, are oftentimes ones that like integrated very well in the United States. But then you've got the groups that we discriminated against. For instance, the Irish, the Italians, Jewish, Chinese, and all these people are the ones that had sort of famous organized crime issues in the United States. And the idea that it's completely unrelated from the discrimination and like not allowing them into like public areas, the idea that, oh, no, we discriminated against them and said that they suck and that they're stupid and we don't want them in our society, but that's completely unrelated from the fact that they became criminals. But then these other people that, I mean, if you look at them in their original countries, act the same, but we didn't treat that way, didn't become like that. It obviously shows that the discrimination and the societal like prejudice is a huge component of this, and it's sort of weird to me that it hasn't been brought up in this conversation until now.
And
Well, I
maybe
mean-
there's a causation.
I mean, that doesn't
Why
explain
do you
everything,
think-
though. Because,
Why do you think some ethnicities are discriminated and some aren't? What do you think the cause is?
What are
Uh,
the causes?
what do you think
There are
ignorance.
multiple causes.
Ignorance, usually.
One of the big ones is either ignorance or tribalism.
So just ignorance. Everyone's stupid. It is every single country in the world is having some sort of discrimination against a specific nationality for no reason at all other than ignorance. And
I said-
some nationalities know that than others.
I said one of them. The thing is, a lot of it
There are
also comes
multiple
from.
reasons why, but yeah, I'm gonna let Enderville continue.
Oh, thank you, DR. I appreciate that. Yeah, feel free to step in anytime you want to. But I was going to say one of the other ones obviously has to do with tribalism, and then also like friction between cultural values. Like, for instance, I'm probably the first guy to come here and say, like, if you've got like a dude who's like a hardcore Wahhabist, like, from like the central, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something, I'm probably going to disagree with him on like everything, and the values that he's going to want to promote in a society are not the values I'm going to want to promote, right? And so even though I would be like, look, man, like, as long as you participate in my society, in the way that my society exists as the civic culture, I don't give a shit. To the degree that it people try to push something that is a completely different society from what you're expecting. Obviously, this creates friction, right? A lot of times it's not that. Like for instance, the Irish coming to America, right? These dudes were not like trying to promote some sort of like Celtic anti-British like, Cernunno's death cult or something, right? Like they're just fucking Irish people, but the British have a pretty strong tradition of hating the fucking Irish.
Yeah, that's one of
yes.
the exceptions to this.
And yeah, right. Like, freaking Liquid knows. I mean, the Scottish in the sort of ranking of British Isles people that the English spit on are not as low as like the Irish, but they're still below, obviously, themselves. The English, right?
Yeah, we belong there.
In
Bro.
the what'd you say?
We belong there.
You were supposed to help me, Liquid.
No, we completely belong there, and it's understandable.
But yeah, I'm not going to say that it's only ignorance, right? And there are times when you can go like, no, I think that these cultural values are not, that they're toxic. They're not good, right? Like if you're like, oh, well, women should not
Islam.
be educated. Oh, this is the thing, though. This is the thing. I am willing to say, like, there's a lot of Islamic cultures that I think their culture is toxic and fucked up. But the thing about Islam itself is, like, if you look at the Dark Ages in Europe, right? Like, they were the ones preserving the light of civilization, right? When, like, the sort of torch
again?
passed from the ancient Greeks of, like, science, looking at the world, philosophy, right? And then in the West, we had the fall of Rome, and it's like people are just sitting there and going, the only knowledge that you need is written in this, Latin book, but we're not going to teach you Latin so that you have to go ask this guy what it means. And then in fricking, like the Arabian Empire, it's like algebra, algorithm, alchemy, right? These
Yes,
were all named
about the
Al
civilization?
because... What'd you say?
What about the cultural aspect, though? How did they treat ethnic minorities? How did the Turks manage the
Under the
Greeks?
Caliphate, I mean, I can, I guess, speak of it. So during one of the caliphates, I believe it was the Umayyad Caliphate, right, the one that controlled the Iberian Peninsula, right, the Al-Andalus region, right. So, the main difference between what it was like to live as a religious and ethnic minority in a majority Arabic-speaking empire and, say, European or Western empire was that, for example, if you were Jewish, there was a lot less discrimination in terms of, hey, convert to our religion or we will kill you type thing, right? So during the Al-Andalus period, we had something known as the Jewish Golden Age in Cordoba, right, in Spain, during which Jewish intellectuals were able to really step forward in society and be in the presence of the caliph and the royal family of the said caliphate and later on the Al-Andalus emirate, I believe, right? Which was not really the case during the European or I guess Christian rule, right? For example, when we look at the Spanish Inquisition and the Reconquista period, what happened to the Muslims and the Jews of Spain? They got either A, kicked out of Spain, or B, they got killed because they didn't want to convert, right? So there's a
forcibly
very
converted.
big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about the Muslims? How do they manage the population in the caliphate? Because
And
you
the
haven't
caliphate,
mentioned
well, what do you mean precisely? There are several
the
different caliphates. You
Christian
have to be more
specific and ethnic minorities, like Coptic Egyptians, Assyrians, Christians of any other race, Greeks, Armenians. How were they treated in the caliphate? Or Muslim countries like Turkey, the Ottoman
Well, the
Empire?
Ottoman Empire and the Umayyad Caliphate are two very different states. The
Yeah,
Ottoman
I'm
Empire
mentioning
had a completely
as
different form of rule.
Muslim theocracies, because the Muslim Caliphate isn't the only one. There were others. But
No, yeah, I'm
and
talking
if
specifically
we want
about the
some, we can
Muslim
stick to the
Caliphate. I'm not talking
Caliphate.
about the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire
And,
is a completely separate thing because they did discriminate against ethnic minorities such as Greeks, Armenians, Copts, Jews, and others.
yeah, but
Yeah,
even
and like the
the Arabs
Janissaries,
did
for
as well.
instance. What'd you say?
The Arabs did so as well, to a lesser extent, but they did so as well. The Christians also suffered under the Caliphate. How do you think the Muslims populated the country so fast? Because the whole region, besides the Arabic continent, was basically Christian. We're talking about the Kassanids, the Greeks, the Coptics, the Mayaks, the Assyrians, and anyone living in Asia Minor. All those people were Christians. did they suddenly become all Muslim? Besides conversions, there were also massacres. We can't ignore that. There was a reason for why the West was so scared of the Arabs. Perhaps there was some reason to justify that.
Well, I'm not saying that life under the Umayyad or one of the multiple Muslim empires and caliphates was perfect. I'm just saying that it was slightly better than living under a Christian power during the Middle Ages if you were not a Christian. I'm just stating a historical tendency. Like living, for example, in like Germany or Russia or Italy during that period was pretty shitty if you were not a Christian, because you'd probably get like pogromed. Like in Venice, that's where the blood libel actually appeared. And that's where the word ghetto comes from, right? Ghetto was an Italian word that was initially made, which initially meant a neighborhood where Jews and non-Christians lived, because they didn't want Jews and non-Muslims to mix with Christians in Venice.
Maybe
So-
there's a reason. Like,
Well, okay, do elaborate. What will be the reason?
When someone talks about the past in terms of discrimination, they always suggest that there is no reason beforehand. And then magically, someone decides to dislike someone else for no reason or justification. Like, I just meet someone else and then I decide to hate him. I move on to a neighborhood, see someone else, and I decide to hate him for some reason, for no reason at all. Like, hello, I hate you. Human relationships don't work like that. There's always
Tribalism does.
some reason.
Tribalism does, yeah.
is a huge thing.
Yeah, but tribalism is always against the general public. In general, like, I prefer my inner group. That's basically for all people. It's not always for Christian Europe, but also for the Muslims, the Mongols, the Turks, the Arabs, the Africans. Every group in history has some sort of tribalism.
Proxy, you seem to.
Overs.
When I raised the Persian Golden Age as an example, it wasn't to say that Islam is perfect. It's to say that Islam is not the limiting factor in when I disagree with what I consider like toxic cultures of people from Islamic countries. And again, like, obviously, tribalism exists in every nation. That's why I'm against tribalism. This isn't Anderville, you are from America, and tribalism exists in America. So obviously you have nothing to talk about when you say that nationalism is bad. It's like, I disagree with the nationalism and tribalism in my country and every other country. Similarly, like, it's like, well, in Persia, for instance, like, the thing is, actually, Persians were probably one of the, depending on which era you go in, one of the better executors of multiculturalism within the ancient world, from my understanding. Right? If you want to go with empires that spanned large areas, but then still let people sort of do their own shit, as long as they just like bent the knee to Caesar, so to speak, and didn't screw with society, the Persians were pretty up there. The Mongols, once they, killed everybody that opposed them, were actually pretty lax too. But they killed everybody that they opposed them. And this is the thing that I want to say. You said, like, European nations were afraid of, like, Muslim nations. Why is that? And this is something where it's like, dude, in the politics of conquering, like, even between between Christian nations, it sucks, right? Like, if you're on the border of a state that is thinking about invading with your country, generally speaking, like, it doesn't really, I mean, it obviously does matter that there are differences, because oftentimes those spark wars, but, like, it always sucks to be invaded by somebody that wants more land. Like, even if that's Prussia invading, like, another Germanic country, though that's less of a case, because generally speaking, you're not going to purge people that you could just assimilate, right? But when you think you can't assimilate, I do agree that oftentimes in, bygone eras led to purges. Like, holy shit, talk about purging people that are in a previously existing place that are occupying land that you want. Like, America is pretty far up there, bro. Like, but it's bad, in my opinion. Like, that is bad. That is why I am on this podcast, like, hopefully today, talking about why nationalism sucks.
I agree with that.
Yeah, my point though is that, so we agree that tribalism is universal, at least has been historically speaking.
Oh,
So
yeah,
even though
historically speaking, yeah.
tribalism always existed in all societies, how come some specific societies have been targeted by all other societies? Like, Muslim nations have historically had a reputation across the globe, not just Christian Europe, but also the East. China also had odd opinions of the Arabs. So did everyone else. And there's one thing about assimilation, as you mentioned. Assimilation wasn't the only option. Christians, Jews, Aramaics, Zoroastrians, whatever national religion exists in those regions. The entirety of North Africa and the Levant basically converted to Islam. These isn't just a product of assimilation, but also forced conversion. You either convert or get killed. Lots of churches lost their gold, they were razed to the ground, families were butchered, massacres, tortures, executions in public. The Arab country isn't just. I'm not talking about perfection because Europe wasn't perfect either. But I'm saying that even with those factors about preserving culture, is Muslim nations were still shittier than Europe. And one of the criteria you use about them basically conserving ancient Greek texts, Europe also did that. Monasteries are basically the only region in Europe who basically have the same text from ancient Greece, specifically Byzantine monks and churches. They also had libraries. They also had public speakers. People knew how to write and speak. And they weren't basically literate peasants that only read the Bible. That is one
Okay.
common misconception about the medieval era.
Sorry, when I was talking about the medieval, like, Dark Ages, I was mostly referring to the parts of Rome that fell, as opposed to the parts of Rome that didn't. Like, as, a Greek, I will respect, that, yeah, a lot of the ancient knowledge got preserved in the parts that did remain within what is commonly called, like, Byzantine, the Byzantine Empire. And the thing is, like, we can get into the nitty gritty of, like, in this period, at this time, like, what was the level of human rights violations being done by the Dark Ages Europeans versus, like, the, same people or, like, 100 years future, 100 years past in the Arab world. But I don't think that that's really, I mean, it's germane to you feeling your people have been wronged. And they were obviously, like, the Janissaries and shit like that. Like, Greeks have fucking had, like, a lot of bad shit done to them at the hands of, like, the Ottomans and other people. So I recognize that pain, right? Like, yeah, that sucks. I think that's wrong. And I agree with you that you should be angry about it. But I think that's different from just, like, yeah, going and thus nationalism. And that's why I'm trying to bring it back to nationalism, because if we want to just talk about, like, the people that have screwed our ancestors in some way, all of us have that conversation because we exist, and in order to have existed, we had to have ancestors. Until somebody gets really uppity with, genetic engineering or something, all of us will continue to have had ancestors. And if we carry, like, the bad shit that some guy did to us, it's, look at the Hatfields and the McCoys. Have you ever heard of this? It's like these two families in, like, Western Virginia that at some point some dude, like, kicked some guy in the kneecap, and then they just kept, like, feuding. Yeah.
You mean those specific Indians that basically genocide us in a way to assimilate other tribes?
Well, I'm not talking about the Iroquois. Well, the Iroquois Federation actually was one of the less genocidal. If you want to talk about, like, the Apaches and the Comanches and stuff, who were pretty much just like the Vikings of the land. Okay, but the point is, up until, there have, generally speaking, been wars. Thankfully, we live in a period where there have been less wars, right? Especially for, like, territory and things like that. And I suppose, as somebody that's somewhat of an idealist, it's like, I think that nationalism, it's got this tiny little kernel of something that's useful, and then a whole bunch of bad shit attached to it. And I think we can take that tiny little kernel of, hey, you should look at the stuff that, people that came and made you who you are, like, did. You should look at history. You should understand history, and you should, respect the history that was part of where you came to be, but then also respect the history of others, and, take the good from all of that, right?
That's I think there's the difference between patriotism and nationalism, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because patriotism, I'm basically pro-patriotism, just be proud of your country, just don't go to the point where like I'm gonna murder everybody else because my country is
That's
better.
not nationalism, though. Yeah, that's like the Southwest interpretation of it. And
Yeah,
nationalism is not just murder everyone else and burn everything to the ground. That's not like what leftists think nationalism is.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm actually also even against patriotism in a way, like because yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Proxy. Is that just because somebody's a patriot doesn't mean that they hate everybody else, right? But it is about like just build up your tribe, you know.
That's also
Um,
nationalism to an extent. Nationalism
exactly.
isn't just the mindless hate of everyone else. It's nationalism is about. I'm not speaking about patriotism here. I'm speaking about the actual love of your country. When you like the aspects that build your country, because every nation is in existence, even when we stayed away from those roots in recent times. Every nation has been founded on these specific virtues. So we're talking about the same religion, language, culture, and blood. These virtues have been the foundation of every nation in existence. And nationalism is about conserving and revering these values, not about hating everyone else. You hate someone when you have a reason to. That's why most Greek nationalists don't hate the Asians or Hispanics or let's say the Russians, because these people have not wronged us, historically speaking, not even now. I'm talking about disliking someone when you have a reason to. When someone has wronged you historically and he still does, you have a reason to have a bias against him. Say the Turks, for example. Turks have not been friendly to Greece for one specific year in history. They still are, and they have always been unfriendly to us. They have always wanted a complete extermination from the side of Europe. That's why most Greeks dislike Turk. We have a reason to do that. It's not like we just met someone and we decided to hate him. That's the Salva's interpretation of nationalism and patriotism, and depending on who is speaking.
Why do you think the Turks dislike the Greeks?
That is something I don't know. I'm not Turkish.
Okay, but you said that
Because we
people
have
just
never
always
actually
have a
done
reason,
anything
right?
against them. As a people, they have come all the way from Mongolia, south, and then west. They have come here to pillage, burn, and do anything else. That's the historical basis of the Turks. Basically,
I
the
know.
predecessors of the what's the word again? Oh, the predecessors of the Ottomans and the Romans.
I know, but when you
Uyghurs, I think the word is. That's how they originated and came to Asia. Do you
no, but
think they came here in peace? They came here through pillaging. They came here through mindless conquest. And that's why Greeks came to dislike them. They don't
I'm
have a specific
aware.
reason to dislike us because we never came to their homes. We never started discriminating against them with no reason. All
No, but
we did was retaliate against their own first aggression.
but Proxy, you said as an axiom, and I think you believed it, that people do not just hate other people for a reason. They always have a reason for it, right? But then you immediately point to these guys and you say, no, they don't really have a reason for it because they're the guys that like I have a reason to hate them, and their reasons for hating me are obviously non-existent.
They obviously just
And
met a
I
Golden
mean,
Dawn member.
what did you say?
They obviously just met a member of Golden Dawn and hate the Greeks.
Yeah, and I'm trying. I'm bringing this up not to like shit on you, but to say that I do agree that everybody thinks they have a reason to hate somebody else for nationalist reasons, and oftentimes that's reciprocated by the other guys. But the other guys think that you're wrong, and you think that they're wrong, and then you're both nursing hurts from the past that are thousands of years old, and it's like everything that is just an illusion in people's brains. Like, if everybody forgot about that, if a wind called amnesia blew across the earth, then the Greeks and the Turks would just be dudes with slightly different skin tones next to each other.
What the fuck did you say?
Okay. Sounds like we got the spiciness here. So hit me, Proxy.
Okay. All right. So You're saying that we simply must forget about everything else on a historical basis. Whatever happened between us in terms of thousands of years must simply cease, like with a snap of a finger. Everything
No,
else
no, no, no,
Yep.
no, no.
disappears.
This was an example of if that happened, then
Then
all
there
of
is
this
no
hatred wouldn't exist, which means that the hatred is based off of like things that no longer exist. The cultural element of it that we hold ourselves is the hatred,
not
right?
exactly, because there is also an ethnic aspect to it. The difference between us continue to exist, even if we forget what happened in the past. Because even the things in the past happened for a reason. We still have lots of cultural and ethnic difference between us that sometime in the future, sometime in the present, may cause a similar conflict, like they still do. The Turks still against Greece in terms of Islam, in terms of Turkish culture, in terms of expanding it against us. Even if we forget our past troubles, this is still going to happen. It's just going to it's just like pretending that everything is in the past. Like every culture that is present on the earth has no other difference between each other.
Sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing that last one.
I mean, like you're basically pretending like every culture on earth doesn't have any differences between each other. Like the
They
Turks
don't
and
though.
Greeks only have the difference in the skin tone, nothing else. Religion,
Uh,
culture, ethnics, heritage, nothing. It's just the past.
Well,
Actually,
I
it's
mean,
or go ahead, Dr.
I was gonna say that I've been to both Greece, Turkey, and Cyprus, which is like a mix of both. I'm gonna be honest with you, my friend. There ain't that much of a difference.
Because you're
Like
a tourist.
genuinely
You don't
speaking.
live here.
I've been to
You don't
Greece
know.
and Turkey. I didn't like either of them. But,
I mean, I
both everyone
don't live
there
in
in
Greece, sure, but
both countries
I
were
lived
extremely
in a
nice to
Greek
me.
speaking country.
Yeah, because you just came here for a few months and you pretend to know about our cultural differences. You don't know what a Greek. You don't. I guess you barely know the difference between the Greek and Turkish as a language. So even besides that, there is
I
also
can
the
speak
religion, the
more in
mindset,
regard
the
to
behavior.
Turkey because I
And
go to
there is
Turkey
also
for the
the
last
specific
decade.
area of Turkey, because not all of Turkey is similar. They have a Greek, at least influence in the West, and Arabic and Mongolic influence in the East, because most people in the Eastern Turkey still have a sort of Ungaric ancestry from the Ugur Turks.
Okay.
There are also a lot of Kurds, people with Arabic ancestry, Armenian ancestry. Turkey is basically a melting pot. Not all of it is similar. But even though you're saying that there is which area of Turkey did you go to? And just asking out of curiosity, which
What
area?
cities?
Yeah,
I've been to Istanbul, Antalya. I've been to the south mostly, like Alanya. What is that? Where else? Mersin, that sort of area.
the coastlines, essentially.
The Mediterranean region of southern Turkey, basically.
Yeah, like I mean, historically speaking, those areas have had a lot of admixture with Greeks. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
essentially
Those are areas where there's still like Greek ruins and etc. In that
yeah,
part
in
of
terms of
Turkey, there
influence.
isn't that much
Although they still
difference.
follow Turkish culture that has been implemented by by their ancestors. Because when the Turks basically came here, uh, which year was it again? I think 2000, wait, 1200 AD, I think, around then. So basically, the Turks came from this and basically populated these areas by spreading around and assimilating the Greek population. So at least in the West, they still have some Greek influence from the blood. That's why a lot of Turks also have a lot of Greek ancestry in their DNA, like 30, 15, 20%, at least some amount of Greek ancestry, because there has been a lot of race mixing between Turks and Greeks in that area. But besides that, they still follow Turkish religion, Turkish culture, the Turkish language. They still aren't technically Greeks. The descendants of which are not exactly Greeks either. So no,
All right.
there is still large cultural differences between each other. We're not the same.
No, I'm not saying you're the same. I'm just saying you're not as different. Like, yeah, just you're not that different. Even as much as you'd like to be, you're not that monumentally different.
What are
Obviously, there
similar?
are differences. You are different peoples. You're different countries. I'm just saying it's not that monumental. That is like,
So,
comparing, I don't know, a Russian to a Mongolian, right? Not
so
that
justify
monumentally
it then.
different.
What are the differences?
What are the differences? Well, I mean,
What are the
obviously there are going to be
similarities? I
differences
mean,
in
what
terms
are
of
the
like
similarities?
the differences would be like obviously like religious background, linguistic background, right? Because Greek is a Hellenic language and Turkish is a Turkic language, and plus Turkey is a Muslim majority country. Meanwhile, Greece is a majority Christian country. They're like
And
very
besides
basic
those,
differences,
I
but they're
mean,
not
besides those, what are the similarities between us? You
the
keep
similarities. I
mentioning.
mean, like when you travel around Turkey, right? When you end up visiting cities like Ankara, Istanbul, Antalya, you're going to see that there is some aspects of like I guess a collective Mediterranean culture that are there, right? I mean, the cuisine is similar, right? Like gyros and the Turkish kebab, there's not that monumentally different, cuisine-wise at least. Also, in the terms of drinks, in terms of I mean architecture, obviously there are going to be differences because Turkish architecture is inspired by Islamic architecture. So like a lot of stuff is going to be similar across other Middle Eastern countries like Arab majority states, per Iran and other countries. But there are similarities in terms of like I guess general hospitality, culture, etc.
So
Even
the
mentality, I'd say.
so pretty much the biggest differences. I mean, the biggest similarities between us are the food and drinks, essentially.
Well, not really. Also, like patriotism, right? Turks and Greeks are very patriotic and very proud of their country. But I mean, that's one thing that definitely unites you two, that you're very proud of your cultural backgrounds and of your countries.
And who doesn't? I mean, that's the normal behavior of a human being to be patriotic of their country, to love it. That's how a
Yeah,
human
but I
being
mean,
is
not to
supposed
the
to act.
extent that a Greek and a Turk would be. Like, for example, in countries like, I don't know, like Denmark or something, it's a completely different type of patriotism.
Well, because these are Western Europeans. The same
Exactly.
similarities are
Like,
in some other
Denmark,
countries as well.
the Danish aren't human beings
This is the
though.
Balkans. In the Balkans in general, that doesn't mean that Slavs and Greeks are similar cultures because you see the similar patriotism. Everyone in the Balkans loves the country. The Greeks and Turks
hold
are
up, I'm gonna be
not
right
fun.
back.
All right.
All right?
All right. But Proxy, like, how would I put this? I see a lot of what you're saying, right? And granted, the DR was just talking, and I have a slightly different opinion than him, so obviously I can't really continue his side of a conversation, really, because I'm actually less on you know, the only differences are cultural angle that DR was saying, right? I think most of the differences between different peoples are cultural. I think that like if you took a Turk dude and he got adopted by like a Greek family and they raised him as a Greek, like he'd be acting pretty Greek, you know? I guess because like I got a lot of respect for like the Romans, and the Romans had strong civic virtues, right? Like they were all about you be Roman, right? But their thing about you be Roman was like you could be from Ethiopia and be Roman. You could theoretically be Chinese and from Roman if you really decided to get on that horse for that long. But you needed to have the Roman virtues, right? If you didn't have the Roman virtues, then like it didn't matter if your freaking father was the emperor. Like you weren't Roman, you weren't shit. Um, and I'm not exactly, I disagree with a lot of the Romans on various things, but they showed what a society based off of a shared cultural ethos
But
could
they
be.
still had a racial and ethnic. Well, Rome still had an ethnic and a religious hierarchy.
It did. It did.
Everyone who isn't exactly Greek or Roman in terms of ethnicity and doesn't have the Roman paganism as a religion, he's still considered a barbarian, like the Celts or Britons. Like Caesar himself even said that the Britons, even those other, even the Britons, I think it's Britons, whatever. Even the Britons that lived in the Roman grounds were considered barbarian because they were considered lesser human beings, even by Caesar. I remember a quote by his conquest when he basically said that Britons are too dumb for even being slaves.
Yeah, I'm sure he did say that. My understanding of the degree of multiculturalism and acceptance of people around like minus BC or whatever was not very good, right? Like I understand that. I'm not taking Rome as an example of a perfect society. What I'm saying is, first of all, and the Romans were nationalistic, but they weren't but they weren't purely ethnically nationalistic.
Yeah,
I
not
do
purely,
believe
but they were.
well, there was an element of it. And I'm not going to deny that, right? But what I'm saying is, to me at least, I think there's a lot of fucked up shit with America, right? I think America's done a lot of things. Like there's a reason that I'm not living in America right now. But I do think that the view of, like, there are these civic virtues that we want our society to have. And people who have those virtues, like, fight for them, like, that's the most important thing. That's workable for society, and I think it's good too. And I think that like my bro, the sort of I think that tribalism ultimately adds more suffering to society than benefit, and that's why I am against nationalism, because I think there is a core of good in nationalism. I think that if you take civic virtues and just throw them out and don't replace them with anything, right? And just say, "Oh no, there's no worth to you or any of your shit." That doesn't do good things for people, right? And so nationalism does give people that, right? It gives them the reason to be proud of where their ancestors came from and where their people came from and like why they're here, right? But then it also attaches all these. But then this dude like screwed over your great grandfather, so you should hate him. And then like these people, they're like sort of similar to us, but they're actually slightly different because they like to wear green instead of red. So then like you should totally like spit on them. And then it's like, well, these guys like subscribe to the same religion, but then like in the Council of Nicaea, they disagreed on this point, and that's why they're all idiots and they're drunkards and they like to rape goats. These are the elements of
yes.
What'd you say?
That's the Welsh.
Unironically, yes.
That's the part that I really disagree with. Like, I'm okay. Like, if you Proxy are like, these are the things about Greek culture that are great. Like, look at the glories of the past. Like, I personally, like, I love reading constantly about the old Greek philosophers. Man, Greek philosophy is amazing. And, like, just, this flourishing of culture and thought and society, right? I have massive respect for the traditions of Greece. But I feel like you can hold those and be proud of those and attempt to emulate those and tell people you should be more like this, and have all of that, all of the goodness of that, without the weird petty backbiting, hate this guy because his cousin, is the wrong type of person, and even if he tried to be Greek, he can never be Greek because fuck that, and fuck everybody that isn't, my people stuff. I think that creates more negative outcomes in the world, and I like positive outcomes. I want us all to have more positive outcomes.
I mean, who doesn't?
Me.
Even my beliefs have the reasoning that I believe that nationalism will be better for us, or any nation in the world. I don't only support Greek nationalism. Every country should be nationalist, for their own good, except for Turkey. Or
See,
Albania.
I was expecting you
Or
to ask
Bulgaria.
that or say that, and if you didn't say that, I was going to ask you. Okay.
Yeah, I basically believe that most people in the world have some sort of virtue in them. Turks,
Can I ask you a question?
Right.
What benefits do you think would happen in the world if Turkey was less nationalistic?
Turkey wouldn't exist.
Fair enough, I guess.
I mean, if Turkey just vanished off the map and it got partitioned or some shit like that, everyone in the Balkans and Anatolia would crack open champagne in that. Like party 24/7.
Okay, and so like if the large chunk of Turkey next to Greece became part of Greece, you think this would be like a good thing?
Yes. Not even thinking about it, of course. Yes.
Okay, and
Why?
let me just ask a question.
Elaborate why. Why would it be a good thing?
Several reasons. I believe
What?
that those I mean, it depends. What historical lands do you mean? Like East Thrace and Constantinople?
I mean, not even historically. Turkey is still threatening Greece with war. They're forcing us to basically increase our military budget, and they are just keeping us
I
with
mean,
the military budget we spend in order to defend in case of an
I mean,
attack.
not even threatening.
We're wasting a fuck
Not
ton of
even
money.
threatening. The thing they do there, it's basically a casus belli. Last summer, I remember that Uruk's race, which basically a Turkish oil ship, was basically trespassing on Greek national waters to search for
They
oil.
still are, actually. Fun fact, they still do that.
Yeah, but it was a huge controversy during the summer because it wasn't just near Greek water, it was inside Greek waters, inside the Aegean. And that's with the ships, because if you think about the planes, constantly there's a Turkish jet in Greek national air. And 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, they also trespassed our land borders in Evros. They basically armed immigrants and sent them to the borders, tear gases. Basically, Afghans and Syrians, as immigrants, were throwing tear gases at our police. And they almost broke the
Military issued tear gas, so they were given that tear
Turkish
gas.
tear gas.
Yes.
Like, I'm honestly surprised how we're not at war yet. Kind of sad, to be honest. Because if you consider it historically speaking, if we went at during one of the past controversies, this shit wouldn't happen at this time. If we went at war during the EMEA controversy, then now Turkey wouldn't have this issue with us. They wouldn't be this militarily aggressive because they know there would be some kind of pushback. Because right now there isn't any sort of answer to this. The only answer is some sort of limited UN speech about how Turkey must stop this. Like, okay, sure, our politicians go to the UN and European Parliament and speak on why Turkey must stop this. Like, all right, they sure will stop it this time. Just speak to them once more. It's just words, just barking and no biting. And if we beat them back just once, historically or presently, they would stop. At least I believe so, and I hope. Because this is just making a fool out of us. We're just showing that we're pathetic and we're basically passive. Do whatever to us, do whatever to our borders, do whatever to people, we won't answer. And what it used to be, historically.
If we fight back, there will be a war, and we are
And
going to lose. So, I mean,
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
we're going
just
to lose because
suicide bombing ourselves to
we
prove a
have some
point is very
strategic
wise as a country.
we have a geographical protection for this because it's really hard to invade Ireland. And Evros is basically mountainous terrain. Just place a few tanks in there, hold everything back, and it's. I don't think they're going to reach Greek land any soon because our countries, in terms of army, are still very similar. We have a large army to population ratio. We have better aircraft, better ships, better and we also have supposedly at least because it's laughable right now. We
I
also
don't think
have
you'd be
NATO
able to
on
afford to
our
go to
side.
war with Turkey. I don't think you guys could afford it.
Afford it? Sure, we
Yeah,
can't.
that's also a thing.
However, we can in terms of strategy.
Plus, they can just
Economically, our
pepper
economy is
Greece with
fucked, but
rockets
nonetheless.
until we cannot take it anymore.
Even without where our economy is going to sit, whenever we're going to fix the economy, someone in terms of politics is going to mess it up. Like we nearly just fixed the damage that was caused from the 2008 economic crisis. We nearly fixed it, and right at that moment, our politicians decided to implement a supposedly ecological measure, cut down on lithium factories and mines, shut down our industry, give up more of our soil and harbors to the Chinese. Everything we have must be owned by the Europeans and Chinese. We own nothing in terms of industry, even though we have the capability to use it. We have natural resources, we have iron, we have oil, we have natural gas, we have farmable land. We have harbors. We have the largest coastline in Europe right now, at least in terms of country size. And yet we use none of that.
So, do you mind if I step in for a moment?
So we
Proxy?
basically use nothing of it. Yes?
It sounds like I've heard a lot of examples of why it sucks to be next to a nationalist Turkey. And this, squares with my understanding, which it sucks to be next to a strongly nationalist, militaristic country. But there's something that I will totally give you, because I believe that you probably feel that in order to protect Greece from this nationalist Turkey, Greece itself must be nationalist. That the alternative would be, wait, is everybody muted? That's weird.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
he's been
Yes.
ranting about Greek nationalism for the past like half an hour.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
going to. It's going
I
a bit,
genuinely had no reason to talk.
Oh, that stuff's going
it's
on
going to be
upstairs in my head. I
boring
don't know if
because
that
no
makes
one else is
anything
Greek.
Okay,
So
but
anyone
I
wants to speak?
just wanted to quickly, if somebody wants to speak, yeah, let us know, and I can shut up too. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
Yeah,
But I did feel there was a good point here, which is that I think it's understandable to feel that in the face of the nationalism of a neighboring country, that one's own country must be similarly nationalist. It's sort of like if there's a violent dude running around with a gun, then you want a gun too, right? You don't want to be the guy without a gun when there's a guy running around with a gun, right? Is this the American within me talking?
Yep.
Just
I
you being
agree.
American.
Just you being a Yankee. What can I say?
so anyone else to speak about nationalism? Zemaitiskas?
I mean, I have reasons to be nationalistic. It's just because of history, and that's it.
I mean, I've pretty much talked for the entire podcast. I don't want to talk anymore. I want someone else to step in.
Maybe we should
For
start
Lithuania,
wrapping
our reasons for nationalism is just because we've been screwed over by mainly the Russians and Germans for the entirety of our history. And the fact that Russia is still relatively nationalistic is still why I'm very nationalistic.
Not even just still nationalistic, like actively imperialistic at this point.
Well, yeah, they're actively trying to like assert their dominance over us by making us like
You
give
said you're
them routes
Latvian.
to Kaliningrad.
Yeah,
you're
plus they're
Latvian,
invading a
right?
neighbor as we speak, so.
So honestly, I have reasons to, because I have a very, very nationalistic neighbor. And some of our other nationalistic neighbors like Sweden, Germany, they aren't nationalistic anymore because they've been cuffed by the West.
Sadly.
Well,
I mean,
Sweden, was
basically
Sweden
Greece.
ever nationalist?
Yes, the Swedish Empire. Are you familiar with like the Great Northern War?
I am, but wasn't
I
that
am.
like centuries ago?
A really long time ago.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? I missed them back then.
We're
But
all
the Swedish
Sweden.
were worse than in terms of Latvia.
I miss nationalistic Sweden.
I mean, you're Latvian, right?
No, Lithuanian.
Oh, Lithuanian. So the Russians are worse than the Swedish for Lithuania.
What?
So you're saying that you prefer the Swedish to the Russians, even though you're Lithuanian.
Of course.
Of course, bro. Anyone's better than the Russians.
Bro.
Didn't the Swedish though break up the Commonwealth?
Listen,
Sweden
it's
would
either
what?
going back to being poor and speaking Russian or being less poor and being Swedish.
I mean, if I remember correctly, the Swedish basically won against the Lithuanian Commonwealth while they were fighting alongside the Russia. So
Sure,
you
but
were
if I
allies.
had to choose between the Swedish or the Russians, I'd choose the Swedes.
I choose the
But you are
Russians.
even ethnically similar.
Neither are Lithuanians ethnically similar to Russians. They're completely different groups.
Yeah, dude, if Sweden took over the U.S., I might not have left.
I mean, that's kind of. Actually, I might have
Sweden isn't taking over
wrong
anywhere
on this one. I mean,
ever again.
aren't Latvians technically kind of Germanic, at least in terms of influence? I mean, the Lithuanians. I mean,
We're
there's somewhere between
we're
Slavs
not
and the
close to
Germanic.
Germanic. We're not close to Germanic. We never
They're
have
Balt.
been.
They're a completely
We are our
separate
own group.
ethnic group.
We're Baltic.
They're a separate group.
Yeah, I mean, the Baltics, though, aren't at least kind of similar.
Not really.
Well, like Latvia, Lithuania, yes. Estonia, no, because Estonia is a Finno-Ugric.
Yeah, the Finno-Ugric.
Yeah. So, Latvia and Lithuania are like the only like Baltic states, I guess.
We're not even close to Germanic. If I go to a German and say "Aš esu lietuvis," they're not going to understand what I'm saying.
They're completely different
It's a
languages.
joke
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, I mean, if you tell a joke to a German, of course he's not going to understand, even in German.
I could, I don't know, go up to German speaking Baltic Prussian. They might understand.
A little bit, yeah, I guess.
Well, yeah,
I
because
mean,
it's very similar.
this was basically a joke about Germans not having humor. I mean,
I guess
Anyway.
we're all German today.
Yeah, point,
Yeah. Anyway,
Rather-
let's start wrapping up.
This point being, I'd rather be Swedish than Russian.
I would disagree with that.
What, you would want me to be Russian?
No, I'd rather be Russian and Swedish.
Why the fuck
My
would you
guy,
want to be?
you clearly have not been in Russia.
I have
I
not.
can just tell.
I just.
You have never
Exactly.
been to Russia.
I just.
I've
hate
lived
Sweden
in
that
Russia.
much.
I have lived in Russia. I've been there for 3 years.
I've been to Russia as a tourist. It's shit.
I don't
It's
care.
ass.
I hate the Scandinavians that much.
I kind of
Would
like
rather
the-
live under a totalitarian nationalistic regime than under Sweden.
Yes.
If they mixed some of the aspects of Sweden and Russia, then I'd definitely live under it.
To be honest,
Bro.
I kind of like the Slavs. I mean, even as a nationalist, I still like the Slavs because I prefer them to the Americans.
I prefer
Yeah,
the
but-
Americans to the Slavs.
Yeah,
I'm
but-
to be
I'd rather,
honest.
I'd rather live in Ancapistan than live in Sweden.
At least in terms of.
Bro, use your 13th
stories.
birthday. Stop LARPing about Ancapistan.
I mean, we
I'm not
have
even
like.
an Ancap. I'm just saying I'd rather live there than Sweden. That's how
I mean,
terrible
we have
it
a
is.
ton of Russians.
I was
have a
about to
ton
say.
We have like a ton of Russian and Serbian tourists here in Greece, and they usually beat up the American tourists. So we can.
I mean, most of us don't like the Americans either.
Yeah, they're obnoxious as fuck as tourists. They're kind of the worst together with the British. No offense.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend American tourists at all, dude.
And, like,
American tourists are
we don't know
funny.
how much of
I like
Greece it
black
is.
British
sometimes.
tourists. The British
Proxy,
tourists are also.
I'm aware of British tourists are annoying. I've seen a plane of British people on a flight to Florida. Some
All-
of the,
all
British
the
tourists are
biggest
fucking insane
scum
society.
on this planet.
Like,
The
the
British
British have
tourists
a
here,
reputation
all they
in
do
here in
is
Greece.
drink, scream loudly, and try and get with local women. Except they're drier
Basically.
than the fucking Sahara.
Basically this. Because
They
British
basically get
basically come
drunk,
here to
get
fuck.
naked.
They think that
walk around.
Greece is like a free island. They come here to avoid the British laws. And
No,
think, oh, this is it's less strict. We can basically drill fuck all day around.
I'm sorry, but if we're talking
Stuff.
shit about tourists we don't like, can I get a moment to just rant about British tourists to Florida for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so the plane there and back, the amount of fucking adults with Mickey Mouse ears on their headband things, like Jesus Christ, you're a fucking adult. Be one. And I had this one motherfucker with a Universal tattoo on his arm, the fucking Universal logo. Jesus Christ, Disney Springs, don't even get me fucking started on Disney Springs. It was genuinely a concentration camp. The amount of just blind consumerism was fucking disgusting. Like, genuinely, I'd rather be in Auschwitz. Unironically. My point overall is fuck Disney and fuck Disney fans. Anyway, someone do an
Honestly,
outro.
like I would rather relive the entire Soviet Union than like just witness the mindless consumerism of the West that there is today.
Yeah, don't go to any Disneyland park, man.
I've been
Or-
to Disneyland. It's
I've never
Yeah.
been to Disneyland.
I never.
Disneyland is
Neither.
It's horrible.
American Disneyland sucks, by the way.
What?
Paris Disneyland is okay.
Listen, I'm not rich enough to go to Disneyland.
Yeah, Japan's Disneyland is pretty decent. They've got this place called like what was it, Disney Sea or something? That's like
Yeah, I
it's
heard
like
about
Disney
it.
minus all the characters and just sort of take the production values and make it for like adults as opposed to children. It's pretty actually nice.
That sounds kinda nice, actually.
I loathe Disney as a corporate empire that throws
yeah.
money at changing public copyright law just so that they can like destroy the common cultural, common cultural IP and just rake in money. But I gotta say, Disney Sea is a pretty decent place.
Bro, y'all gonna get all of y'all gonna get assassinated by Mickey Mouse now. I swear to God.
I'm fine with that. Come
People
on.
are gonna
Disney
start going
nationalists
missing
are
after this
after us.
podcast.
I'm gonna go talk to Vladislav. He'll know where to hide me.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse, come and get me. But
Yeah,
anyway,
being killed by Mickey Mouse is like leftist Valhalla, dude. Like, come on, man.
Are you ready to die an honorable death by the hands of the mouse?
Yeah, I just need to get my will written so that somebody can preserve my doujinshi collection. I'm
Michael
ready, dude.
Mouse,
Yeah,
the
I'd
man
imagine that
sacrificed.
dude, I've seen Mickey
I-
Mouse murder someone though. Like that shit's brutal. Have you never seen the episode of South Park?
Yeah.
Where me and Proxy were talking about this
Yup.
yesterday, where they kill Winnie the Pooh with piano wire. Like that shit's.
I'm
brutal.
telling you, Michael M. Mouse does not fuck around when it comes to brutal murder.
He does not.
I would
yeah,
not want to
essentially
face his wrath.
execution.
And that's not even
Execution
talking about all
by
the Disney stars who died of from drug deaths that were definitely on Disney.
I remember,
No.
wasn't it like a few years ago that Disney tried to copyright Thor, just like the character itself?
Yeah, I remember
Like,
about that.
You're fucking with me, right?
No,
No, like the
No.
entire mythology behind Thor.
It wasn't for, I think, Loki.
I mean, by this point, execution by Mickey Mouse is like the leftist seppuku right here.
Bow
Yeah,
down
yeah.
to the corporate empire.
Though we should wrap up.
Yeah.
If
We
the
should wrap up
person
soon,
in the
and I
board
wanna-
worship Mickey Mouse.
All right. Someone give us an outro.
Yeah. Okay. Though wait. I want to give you guys a little bit of trivia before we go, which is that I believe that the role-playing game company that published an early version of Indiana Jones Adventures did try to copyright the term Nazi and was turned down. But anyway, yeah, this has been a podcast about this has been a podcast about nationalism at the PCM Productions podcast. I, for one, felt that I gained a greater understanding of where Proxy and Zemaitiskas are coming from in their nationalist thing, even though I completely disagree with them. I suppose it is the nature of our podcast that we will always start and end disagreeing. But I do hope that Proxy as well got a little bit of an understanding of where I'm coming from.
Kind of.
Inshallah.
And
Inshallah.
I spilled in a necro.
Inshallah, I shall destroy Turkey.
This may be hard to hear, since you don't know how to be sincere, like you really care about what people think. And so that's why you lip sync all the talking points and trendy buzzwords. It's dehumanizing, it's so absurd that you think that anybody cares, cause nobody cares about your politics, your taste in music, your regurgitated takes on everything. The clothes you wear or the food you eat, please shut the fuck up, it means nothing to me. It means nothing to me, it means nothing to me. It means nothing to me, it means nothing to me.